I bet you're wondering if there'll be spoilers in this video. Well, yes and no. The first this many minutes of the video are basically spoiler-free. I'll be showing footage of blueprints and talking about the experience of playing it, but I won't be mentioning any details or showing any puzzle solutions or talking about what any specific rooms contain that might be important. When showing footage, I've opted for the misdirection strategy, in that I'll show important details and also red herrings. So if you're a newbie, you still won't know what aspects of the house are important clues. I hope the first half will strike enough of a balance that veterans will mostly be able to figure out which puzzles I'm talking about, even though sometimes I'll be necessarily vague. Then about halfway through the video, we'll move to more spoilerific material, which will spoil a few of the game's puzzles and talk about the mechanics of some puzzles and rooms. The video is broken up by these sections, and I'll let you know when we start to get spoily. Also, I'm declaring open season in the comments section, so if you don't want to get spoiled, don't scroll. Oh, and I'll be kind of spoiling Fez's black monolith puzzle and all the puzzles leading up to it between these time points. But don't worry. You are never going to solve it. Let's go. Like a lot of people, I spent much of April and May absolutely consumed by a game about exploring an ever-shifting mansion in search of an inheritance and the answers to some very well-kept secrets. And I truly can't say what I find more fascinating, the game or the discussion it's provoked. Alongside its slow-burning story of family intrigue and political conflict, the game itself sparked numerous conflicts and reignited all kinds of arguments about the nexus of difficulty, luck, developer intention, and player experience. And this is a video about those things. But it's also a video about my own, sometimes fraught relationship with puzzle games and the obsessiveness they cultivate. But it's also a video about the legacy of puzzle games and what the current puzzle game moment feels like. But it's also about video games generally, and how they rewire our brains and create epiphany and frustration and addiction and allow us to spin our own little stories of promise and purpose and woe, and how we reckon with that when it's all over. It's also a video about blueprints. Welcome to Mount Holly Estate. You are young Simon, visiting your granduncle's mansion after his death. He left the house to you in his will, on the provision that you solve its riddles and find the 46th room in the 45-room manor. The game is a roguelite puzzle-solving game in which every day you build out the house by laying tiles in a 45-square grid. You start the day at the bottom centre square, the entrance hall, with 3 closed doors to the front, left, and right. Open one and you'll be greeted with 3 random options for the room you can place there. Make your pick, proceed, and repeat until you end up with nothing but walls or locked doors in your way, or you run out of steps. That's game over. Lose all your progress and items, but not your knowledge, and start from scratch tomorrow. And so, every day, the mansion will look different as you wind your way through it, making decisions about which room to place next, based on its perks and entry and exit placement. Some rooms offer benefits that net you currency, gems to select better rooms, coins to buy things in shops, keys to open locked doors or chests. Some contain puzzles or special items. Some rooms are elusive and have exact requirements that must be met in order to appear in your drawer, such as being placed in a certain spot or a specific other room existing first. Some only fulfill their function in combination with other rooms. Most contain clues to puzzles spanning the mansion and its grounds, and the slow unpicking of these puzzles, often haphazardly depending on what rooms you happen to draw that day, will take place over many attempts.
Those are the facts of what Blueprints is, on a moment-to-moment level. But any description of Blueprints would be incomplete without mentioning its astonishing depth. The kind of depth that sucks players in for dozens or even hundreds of hours. Beating the game and finding room 46 is maybe like a quarter of the amount of game that's there. As such, this game is like wandering into a cave full of secrets that just keeps opening and opening, and anytime you think it can't possibly get any bigger, it does. Over about a month, my journey with this game would take me to the heights of obsession and the depths of despair, in a way I've never really experienced before. And I wrote all of it down.
My first few hours of Blueprints were tentative. On my first run, I slowly filled out a little over half the mansion, and I thought, is this it? It seemed to be nothing more than placing rooms, walking through them, and occasionally doing a rather basic logic puzzle. At first, I set my sights on getting better at filling out the mansion without getting stuck, and seeing as many new rooms as possible. There were quite a few discoveries as I figured out what every room did and started finding basic synergies and strategies. So far, so good. But I didn't get what all the fuss was about, and certainly not why one particular in-game message advised me to keep a notebook handy during play.
By the end of my second play session, I had not one, but 2 notebooks on the go.
It's during my second play session that I discover this game has way more puzzles, of every variety, than I'd imagined. It's also on day 2 that I start solving more complex puzzles than the ones contained to single rooms, such as one puzzle with clues scattered across 3 different locations. And what a rush when I finally put it all together and crack it.
But then I solve an even better puzzle. One that doesn't just require you to collect clues from different locations, but to have the kind of insight that involves realizing 2 seemingly unconnected pieces of information can actually be used together to help you figure out a solution. This is the first thing approaching a lateral thinking puzzle I've come across, one that requires a holistic understanding of where and when you are. And when I solve it, I want to break out into song.
I get better at strategizing and synergizing. I make better decisions. I switch strategies on the fly based on what resources I need more of. Every run, it's easier to build successfully, to obtain and use items. Opportunities unfold in front of me as I play. Some of them I even stumble upon by accident. I find keys, but not the doors to use them on. Doors, but not the keys to open them. It feels like there's such a wealth of codes, clues, secrets, and items, I'm tripping over a new one everywhere I turn. I can't scribble them down in my notebook fast enough.
10 hours in, I found enough clues and puzzles to fill an entire game already, and I'm still finding new clues for what seem to be puzzles with more layers than a terrain. I find myself adrift in what feels like an endless possibility space. Disjointed clues swimming in front of my eyes and no idea how they will all connect, but with the utmost faith that they will. It's overwhelming. It's electrifying.
And then I hit the best puzzles yet. I realize my focus has been way too narrow. That the whole time I've been playing, there have been clues staring me right in the face. I start to solve puzzles strewn across rooms, across the entire house, and my hands shake as I write down what I find. Sometimes I receive a tangible reward, sometimes yet another new piece of information. I wonder which of these puzzles are progressing me to the end, and which lead to a non-essential item or upgrade. I do not know, and I do not mind.
I realise that everything is a puzzle. Any object, anywhere inside or outside the house, could be part of unlocking a secret. Every piece of set dressing becomes a cause for interrogation. What are you hiding, you son of a bitch? I start writing down everything I observe that might be significant. And I mean everything.
There's a blissful kind of moment you get in some open-world puzzle games. The realization that there's so much more here than you thought. The click you can almost audibly hear as your brain thunks the new information into place. Outer Wilds was a master of this, but also Myst, Tunic, Return of the Obra Dinn, The Witness. It's a feeling that mimics spiritual epiphany, a discovery that changes how you look at the world around you, all of a sudden seeing more depth and potential there than you ever had. It's akin to peeling back the layers of reality like a banana, or suddenly being able to see in an additional dimension. If you were being less generous, you might say it mimics apophenia, a symptom of psychosis in which one sees patterns everywhere, even where they don't exist. Peter Silk, the first person who decoded a critical part of one of gaming's most infamous puzzles, said,
I imagine I looked like a crazy person on the train, with my bundle of notes, writing haikus about space and time. That's what I love about codes and puzzles. They infect the mind, stay with you long after you put the controller down. When the breakthrough comes, it's like nothing else.
This is striking, right? Is there anywhere else you'd hear an infection being described as a positive thing? Is it really a positive thing? Or, much like an infection, are these games just hijacking the same part of our brain that positive things tend to stimulate, giving us a replica we're mistaking for the real thing? Whatever your answer to that question, Blueprints may be the most effective game I've ever played in this regard. And while my mind happily succumbs to the infection, my body atrophies. My eyes tire and crumple from the hours spent intensely scanning the screen for clues.
12 hours in, I can barely keep track of all the notes, disconnected thoughts and clues spilling over page after page after page. I sit in darkness on the couch, dishevelled and mumbling to myself, surrounded by notepads and pens. I feel like I'm at the centre of a million winding paths, most of them distractions, all of them beckoning. Dishes go unwashed, assignments go unwritten. I realise I'm going to have to slow down and pace myself. I realise this is the biggest puzzle game I have ever played.
Yesterday, I took a break from the game to get other stuff done, but it's permeating my every thought. I can feel my brain cells being rewritten, like so many blueprints. My partner tells me the plumber's coming to look at the hot water today. Something about building a boiler room. No, they're coming to fix the boiler. I played a gig in a crowded function room, and for a second, I glimpsed an orange sitting on a table in front of me. And it wasn't even a thought. It was a twitch, like a shard from another life, suddenly breaking through. On day 3, something incredible happens. In a bolt of inspiration, I figure out the meaning of a phrase I'd had in front of me since the previous play session. It just suddenly dawned on me. Funny how that happens. I've had 2 moments like that already, when pondering 2 of the more tricky puzzles. The solutions both found me eventually. In the shower and in bed. This game and its riddles are hunting me down wherever I go. At one point, in between day 9 and day 10 of play, I will realise that one of my answers was wrong and figure out the correct one entirely in my sleep. This might be obvious, but I should say it. These are some really good puzzles. They're really good. Not so complicated that they're too obtuse, but just complex enough that it feels like your brain is being squeezed in the best way. Blueprints contains my favourite kind of puzzles, those ones that require you to be clever or think outside the box. I've talked before about how I've lost enthusiasm for a lot of puzzle games, because the satisfaction of, yay, I solved yet another puzzle that was a bit harder but basically the same as the previous 20 puzzles, can only sustain me for so long. I've realised that the puzzle games that really excite me are the ones that require that cleverness or lateral thinking. Not just games like Obra Dinn and The Witness, but also a good amount of point-and-click games in the LucasArts tradition that contain some really neat moments where you don't realise what all these clues mean until suddenly, in one exquisite moment, you do.
The Blueprints puzzle I've been dreaming about requires multiple steps that each feel like using a different part of my brain. It requires, first, careful observation to round up 44 critical pieces of information, then linguistic cleverness, then a logical jump or two to work out how to put everything together, then some slightly abstract thinking to work out what the message you end up with actually means. To solve a puzzle like this, you have to let it enter you, seep through you slowly like groundwater through layers of soil, until it hits the right bit of your brain and the epiphany whacks you all at once. These puzzles have become part of me.
Writing for Backlog.com, Grayson Morley calls Blueprints an obsession simulator, saying, "The game stretched beyond the boundaries of my time spent with a controller and into my daily life." This was both blessing and curse, concluding with him stepping away from the game because the mental space it was occupying outside of play was crowding out other, healthier obsessions, such as writing his book. Having played Blueprints, I understand this deeply. While I've been playing, important stuff has been neglected. Why would I do boring reading for an essay when I could be having a mind-busting revelation about statues or carpet patterns? Sometimes Blueprints feels almost parasitic, not just hijacking my mind but draining it as well. I find that the more secrets and mechanics I unlock, the more taxing it is keeping it all active in my head during a run. And sometimes I'll end a play session feeling mentally exhausted. As I write this script, I should be marking papers. How much more do I want to let this thing consume me?
This question stretches beyond the manicured grounds of Mount Holly Estate to the heart of video gaming, a hobby that so deftly consumes so much of our thoughts and our time. We feel the reward, the dopamine release, far more immediately than we feel the cost. The relationships we're neglecting, the chores we're procrastinating, the problems we're avoiding. I'm seriously grappling with how much time and mental energy I can sink into Blueprints before feeling like the cost was too high.
Not only does this question of obsession go to the heart of gaming, it goes to the heart of something we all have as humans, a desire for meaning-making. My slightly worrying behaviour playing Blueprints isn't that different from that of people who tumble down internet rabbit holes, from unsolved true crime mysteries to, unhinged conspiracy theories. We're all kind of doing the same thing, playing a huge game of make-believe in which We're a brave hero solving vital mysteries through pattern recognition and piecing together cryptic clues. And who can blame us for getting sucked in? We all want to be Nicolas Cage in National Treasure. We all want to feel important.
It's day 4 of play, and the victories start off small. A few runs offer me a bit of extra knowledge, an upgrade here and there, but no big discoveries. 3 times I attempt a specific strategy. 3 times I fail miserably. For the first time, I feel the frustration that comes with just wanting to do a specific thing in this game and not being able to, partly because of bad luck. Making progress is starting to feel like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. But then I have a breakthrough. I discover the final piece of what I need to enter the antechamber, the 45th room, the one that's been sitting perpetually inaccessible at the very top end of the house. I set my sights on the antechamber, and after 1 failed run, I nail it. I'm actually surprised it only took me 2 goes, considering the amount of luck involved at every point. Then again, I know enough to have discovered multiple ways to achieve every step of what I need to do.
I build my way up, place the connecting room, and finally enter the walls of the antechamber. The next step reveals itself, and I know just where to go and what to do. I feel good. I feel really good. I can do this.
I reflect on criticisms I've heard of this game, mostly the one about RNG.
You knew I was going to bring up the RNG, didn't you?
Random number generation. In the context of video games, it means any output from the game that involves an element of chance. In Blueprints, when you approach a closed door in your house and go to place a room there, the forces of luck, RNG, determine what 3 options will show up from your overall pool. And boy, are some people not pleased about how much RNG there is in Blueprints. It's the one take that has managed to filter through my avoidance of the discourse so far.
Blueprints does undoubtedly contain randomness, and I'm definitely already seeing that sometimes a run will be killed by bad RNG and no fault of your own. Then again, that's roguelife, baby. If you can't roll with the occasional bad die result, get out of the genre. Oof, sounding a bit gatekeepy, aren't I? I think I disagree that this game is too random, for 2 reasons. First, options. The more I discover in the game, the more I can see that, like many games with a substantial luck element, Blueprints solves the problem by giving you options to deal with the randomness. The more you play and the more you discover, the more options you'll find to do what you need to do. I find Blueprints quite generous in this regard so far, actually. Second, quantity. At any time, you might be pursuing up to 12 different threads, and if you haven't managed to draft the room you need to follow one thread, just focus on another one. You'll always be able to do something to progress on each run. The credit roll sneaks up on me. I have a few failed runs before I manage to complete the sequence of events leading into room 46. But at last, on day 47 in the game, and after about 15 hours of play, I enter room 46 and trigger the lovely final cutscene and the credits. Well done, that's it, see you next time. But I am no fool. There is clearly a lot more to this game, and I have 22 pages of clues with as yet nowhere to go. No, I know better than to call this the end. Tomorrow, we return to the grounds to plunder the rest of this game's ample secrets. After all, I've heard enough to know that the credits are arguably only the beginning.
Here's a question. Is it possible for a puzzle game to be too long? Too big? To do too much? Where do we draw that line if we're going to draw it at all? It's notable to me that Blueprints is the second game in as many years to give us a stupendously large and complicated puzzle game experience. Last year's Animal Well sent players on a wild rabbit chase through not one, not two, but 3 layers of puzzles, each more convoluted than the last. 2 years before that, Tunic asked its most devoted players to decode the in-game language's alphabet and then translate, phoneme by phoneme, the entire 56-page manual.
Personally, I blame... That is the final hidden puzzle in 2012's Fez. The puzzle that was so elaborate and multi-layered, it made video game history.
The steps involved in even preparing yourself to complete the monolith puzzle were beyond any reasonable person's skill or will. You had to complete the game to unlock first-person mode, find the game's Rosetta Stone in one unassuming room and use it to translate the in-game alphabet, get an item called the tome, lay out the pages of the tome and figure out how to read them in the page order 1526378, solve a puzzle to figure out the game's number system, solve another puzzle to translate the game's controls into tetrominos, then go to another specific room and stand in a specific spot and enter the code on the floor, which you can only see in first-person mode to trigger the appearance of a black monolith, the game's final challenge.
Unbelievably, the monolith puzzle has, to this day, never really been figured out. The Fez community uncovered the solution, a sequence of 6 inputs, down, down, left trigger, right trigger, jump up, through brute force. But no one has yet figured out how it was supposed to be solved. For a while, the most popular theory was that you had to take the game's release date, scramble the numbers using the aforementioned page order from the tome as a cipher, use the game's numeric system to arrange those number symbols into a vertical pillar, rotate each symbol and the pillar 90 degrees and convert the new symbols to tetrominos and hence controls. But years later, one of the game's developers finally came out and confirmed that the devs didn't have strict control over the game's release date. That was 7 years ago. And despite countless hours of effort from countless dedicated fans, Fez's monolith puzzle remains a mystery, 13 years after it was first discovered. And yet the monolith has never really left us. This puzzle was such an event within gaming that it became both a myth and a high watermark. It feels like ever since then, some puzzle game designers have been trying to outdo each other to make the next Fez, to design a game with a final in brackets final layer so intricate that it would make the puzzle game Hall of Fame.
But there's a trap hidden beneath all these tricksy layers. Animal Well's final layer of puzzles was so devious it became divisive. One puzzle, for example, requires a very specific and unique action to be done while on a particular screen that the player has never had to do before and has no idea they need to do. This feels like it would be discovered by pure accident in most cases, and the required action was particularly finicky for unfortunate controller users. Another puzzle is unsolvable without pooling information with 49 other players. Many players were understandably alienated by this. In the name of breaking new ground in cleverness, the game arguably became unfair. Even the widely celebrated Tunic had a bunch of late-game puzzles so devious, the top comment on one Reddit thread is, "This puzzle is fucked. We're not all Mozart, you assholes devs."
Maybe this backlash says something. Maybe it says that a lot of us just won't stand for bullshit puzzles anymore. We're all aware of the infamously bad puzzle design of the 90s. Some of us poor souls even lived through it. Puzzle games and point-and-click adventures that required moon logic or pixel hunting where you somehow needed to know the exact right place on the screen to click to make something happen. It feels like today's puzzle game designers grew up with those games, learned the lessons, and now we live in a time when we can just take for granted that puzzle games won't break our trust like that.
Or it felt like that until recently. It's interesting to me that in the eternal chase of ever greater craftiness, the late game puzzles of Animal Well, and maybe even Tunic, kind of regressed us back to bullshit video game puzzles. Not that Fez's monolith puzzle was any less obtuse. Clearly, it's not easy to create that perfect zone of puzzle game intricacy, where a puzzle can be so tricky it takes several sleeps and a shower thought to solve, without leaving players feeling like they've had the rug pulled out from under them. Some puzzle games these days feel like they're in an arms race to try and out-elaborate the most elaborate puzzle game. A monolith measuring contest, if you will.
And I'm not really sure how I feel about that. I suppose it's not like anybody's forcing us to do the Mozart-level puzzles at the very end of these games. They are optional, after all. We can always nope out if we're just not in for that deep of a dive, as long as we know when to nope out, so we don't end up unwittingly playing past the point at which the game went from fair to unfair. One solution then might just be communication, clearly flagging to the player that we're in nonsense territory now, so don't get mad when things get a bit bullshit. One of my problems with Blueprints is that not only is there no clear flagging of its more nonsense puzzles, the nonsense puzzles appear throughout the mid-game, scattered in between perfectly good and even fantastic puzzles. To make things even more complicated, no one can seem to agree which are the bullshit puzzles, although many players, fans included, agree that there are some pretty bullshit puzzles. For every player that found a puzzle unfair, there's one who solved it no problem. In a little while, I'll be talking about the puzzles that I experienced as roadblocks that I know others had no issue with. Conversely, I've heard people talk about having difficulty with certain puzzles I solved just fine. Maybe this is simply the result of a game as massive and unwieldy as Blueprints, and to be clear, I don't have a perfect solution. But one thing's for sure. I've officially entered the mid-game, and I have no idea what's coming. My first post-credits day has been mixed. I made some discoveries, but they all tell me stuff I've already figured out. Then I cracked a puzzle I'd been wondering about for days, and I lit up. I didn't solve it, but I know what I need to do.
Sadly, it wasn't to be. 2 runs are met with disappointment. There are a few specific rooms you need to place, and I simply can't get one of them to spawn. I collect reroll dice and throw them down again and again. 6, 7, 8 rerolls, and still the room I need remains elusive. It's my 6th day playing this game, and I've been trying to do something with one particular room since day 2. But I've barely seen it at all. And when I do, I'm unable to attach it to the rooms I need to.
It's not a wasted play session. I build a few brand new rooms I haven't seen before, but it's not enough to save me from turning off the console feeling forlorn. What I need is a brief break to reset.
But I feel like I can't rest. If I stop, I might lose momentum. Lately, I've been finding myself struggling to engage with video games. With any game longer than 10 hours or so, it's very likely that life will get in the way and there'll be at least 1 or 2 longish breaks between play sessions, during which any subtle threads I might have been following will be lost. A few months ago, I played 1000 times Resist, squeezing it in between several busy streaks at work and an overseas trip, and as a result, my experience of the game felt disjointed and incomplete. And that broke my heart. This is the kind of game I might have been able to make a video about if I could have engaged with it closely and consistently, but that possibility just slipped away from me. This regret haunts me up and down the halls of Mount Holly Estate. You only get to play a game like this for the first time once, and I don't want to stuff it up again. But I have to square this with the fact that my channel is nowhere near large enough to support notions of deriving a proper income from it. And so my life out there will always be intruding on my life in here. Every day it threatens to pull me away. Every time I turn on the console, I worry I'm running out of steps. My playthrough is loaded with the anxiety that the experience will be ruined because life will interrupt. I have a YouTube channel riding on doing game analysis that requires the kind of time and energy I'm finding it really difficult to muster.
At the moment, I'm working and also studying, and when it gets busy, I can go weeks without having the mental energy to pick up a game that requires a single spare brain cell. But the longer I go between video releases, the worse it is for my channel. And the channel itself takes up a ton of time. Making these videos takes so much time. This video was scripted back in May. If you're keeping track, that's 6 months ago. As a side note, my Patreon numbers have been decreasing for 2 years now in a row. My last few videos have gone back to view counts similar to what I was getting 3 years ago. And since January, my subscriber growth is the slowest it's been in 4 years. I fear my channel is not just stagnating, it's dying. I want to save it. I want to spend more time doing this, but that doesn't feel within my control and it's affecting me. It's affecting the way I play games. It's adding stress and frustration to my life that I could do without. I love this channel, but maybe it's time to just... My pace is noticeably slowing. I played for close to 3 hours today and only had a couple of what felt like minor discoveries. I followed all the threads that were fairly straightforward. Everything remaining on my to-do list is the more RNG dependent stuff that I haven't been able to do because I haven't gotten lucky. I'm starting to wonder if this game is actually a bit too random. So at this point in my playthrough, 15 to 20 hours in, I've got 2 threads left to follow, and both of them involve drafting a specific room. One of those rooms is rare and only spawns if you're drafting it directly from one other specific room, and I swear it hasn't spawned the last dozen times it could have. The other room is one you need to not only place, but place adjacent to or connected in a very specific way to another specific room. All that is to say that there's a lot of chance involved in doing these things.
There are 2 main defenses of this game I see everywhere online, and I recognize them because they're the same things I said about this game back on day 4. The first one is options. RNG doesn't matter that much because the game gives you multiple ways to achieve a goal. And that's true. Sometimes. But there are some important puzzles that you can only solve by drafting one particular room, and there's no way around that. It just may not spawn. Yes, but there are ways to adjust the chances of rooms appearing, I hear the defenders saying. Upgrade rooms, adjust room rarity, collect dice for rerolls. The list goes on. But here's the problem. The things you need to do to improve your chances are very often cumbersome in their own right. Oh, I can reduce the amount of busy work required to do this thing by doing this other busy work? I don't want to do any busy work. I'm here to solve puzzles. The second defense is quantity. There are so many clues. You'll always have a thread to follow. And that's also true for the early to mid-game. The thing is, there will come a point when you exhaust most of the threads you're following and you are only left with one or two. And then you have to bang your head against that one puzzle and its RNG. The argument, just focus on something else, is no longer valid because there is nothing else.
I feel like this is one reason why the Blueprints discourse has been so frustrating and full of people talking past each other. There were a lot of unfair criticisms of this game from people who picked it up and immediately whinged about the RNG. Which is unreasonable, because in the early game, RNG really isn't a big deal. These people were just throwing a fit because the game wasn't what they expected. But now, anyone who complains about the RNG gets treated like they're one of those clowns who just hasn't given the game a fair shake. I now look back at the times that I made those defenses. How naive I was then. Still in the early to mid-game. Such a child. And I'd like to apologise to the people I said this to. Also, to anybody currently in the early-ish game saying it to me right now in the comments. I accept your apology from the future. You'll see.
I wonder if it's also the ecosystem we're all in that's causing us to talk past each other. In the attention economy, everything's about speed now. If you're a paid reviewer, you may not have enough time to reach endgame content before you have to publish. And if you're a content creator, there's a huge incentive to be the first to have a take and suck up those sweet, sweet views. And that means that the incentives are pushing everybody to talk about things too fast. And then these premature conclusions and the defensiveness they trigger poison the entire discourse for years to come. I don't know how we break this pattern, or if we even can, except to say that you should show your appreciation for creators who take the time to make long-form, well-reasoned, well-researched YouTube videos.
Maybe, I don't know, right now, before we move on to the next section of the video, you could like this video, subscribe, leave a little comment for the algorithm, or sign up as a Patreon supporter. Thank you so much. And this is where we switch to Layer 2 spoilers, because I have no way of critiquing some of these puzzles without talking about some of the stuff you have to do to solve them. So, this is your final warning. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, this game is starting to really shit me.
One of the biggest sources of clues in Blueprints comes in the book A New Clue, which implies that to solve one puzzle, you have to check the covers of the books you can read in the library, perhaps for a red, a purple, a green, and a blue one, and look up certain words in these books. Now, there's another aspect to this puzzle that I missed initially, and that was that you can unscramble the anagrams depicted on this page to deduce exactly which red, purple, green, and blue books you need to crack open. And it turns out that 3 of them are actually books you can find and read elsewhere in the house.
So I want to stress that I know the reference to the library in A New Clue is mostly a misdirect, and that 3 of the 4 books you actually need can be found and read in other parts of the house if you figure out the anagrams. But many players, including myself, initially pursued the incorrect solution that we were misdirected towards, looking for books in the library with certain colour covers and scouring them for clues. And I am going to complain about how awful an experience it was to take this incorrect route to the solution, because I believe that it's still well within the job of a puzzle game designer to take into account the incorrect routes that players will take, as well as the correct one, and to make sure the incorrect routes are blocked or have a clear signal that this is the wrong path to be following. Or if you're going to misdirect the player towards a dead end, at least make sure they won't waste unreasonable amounts of time and effort as they barrel down that dead end.
But Blueprints just lets you barrel down this particular dead end for easily an hour or more. As a reminder, here's my situation. I want to know the colours of the book covers of the books that I can read in the library, because I believe there are special things hidden inside the red one, the purple one, the green one, and the blue one. But there are only 2 books for which the library lets me close the book and look at the cover. The rest are already open when you borrow them, and you can't close them. And there's like a little bit of colour you can see around the edge of the pages, and for a while I thought that was the cover colour. But as I find out later, those colours don't match the colour of the actual cover, and like, why can I close some of these books but not others? It's a small thing, but it seems like that's something the character I'm controlling could do really easily. It's not clear to me why there's no ability to do that, when it's obviously something that I, as the protagonist, might want to do when following this clue. By the way, the bookshop is one of those aforementioned rooms I cannot for the life of me seem to draft. It only spawns from the library, and it is the only place where you can see the covers for almost all of the books you can read in the library. It's pretty funny to me that in Blueprints, if you have a book right in front of you and you want to know the colour of its cover, you have to go to a completely different room because Simon, for some reason, can't close a book. For that matter, the library is the source of a lot of time wasting generally, because you have to visit the library twice to be able to read one book. Once to order it, and once again to actually read it. You have to do this 2-step process every time you want to look at one book. These mechanics seem like strange, arbitrary barriers the developers placed in the player's way just for the sake of putting a barrier in the player's way. They aren't fun barriers to overcome either. It just sucks to have to build the library twice to be able to look at one book once.
But this is an exception, right? Surely I won't be encountering any more of these arbitrary, time-wasting barriers in my playthrough. Today, I had my most disappointing moment yet. I finally managed to build the boiler room and connect it to the furnace, something really tricky that I've been trying to do for 7 days now. And all I get for it is one lousy, ordinary key. This feels grossly disproportionate to how difficult this was to do, and frankly, I'd expected a much bigger reward.
This is all beginning to feel a little like bullshit. I'm looking at things I want to accomplish that are going to take me hours and hours of effort, and wondering if there'll be anything worthwhile at the end, or just another shitty key. What's more, there are puzzles that have been staring me in the face for days and days and days now that I feel like I should have cracked already. Maybe I'm just going further and further down the wrong track with what I'm doing. I'm losing faith. Fast.
My biggest problem is simply how long everything's taking. I feel like it's a golden rule of puzzle game design, although I have nothing to back this up, that once you've figured out what you need to do, it should be as quick and painless as possible to do it. You should not have to jump through arbitrary barriers or repeat puzzle you've already solved before you can input a solution. It should be nothing to quickly check a clue or a piece of information you've already discovered, or to revisit a location you already jumped through hoops to reach. In other words, my main problem with Blueprints is the same one I have with Outer Wilds.
In Outer Wilds, you are an astronaut in a tiny solar system travelling between planets, each with their own quirks and mysteries, in the pursuit of an answer to the question of why the sun keeps exploding and sending you exactly 22 minutes back in time when you die. The early game of Outer Wilds is overwhelming and confusing as you try and figure out how to pilot a spaceship and not crash into stuff. And most of all, make sense of a tidal wave of clues you don't yet have the means to understand. But if you stick with it, you'll get to the real juice, when you start to put things together and have those mind-bending revelations that change everything and open up whole new worlds of possibility. In the late game, you'll have amassed a dizzying amount of information located across 8 different celestial bodies, and here's where my problem lives. In Outer Wilds, you might find a clue at location A and realize it helps you solve a puzzle you already found at location B. But simply getting from A to B might involve traversing a complex maze back to your spaceship, piloting your ship to a different planet altogether, landing the ship, and navigating more complex terrain or environmental puzzles that you've already solved to get to the exact spot you wanted to be. And if you're unlucky, the sun will explode and kill you while you're halfway through whatever you are doing, meaning you'll need to do it all again before you can just solve the bloody puzzle you want to solve. The travel time between 2 locations can easily be several minutes or more, and when you have dozens of locations you might want to revisit in the late game, that can add up to hours of completely wasted time just laboriously trekking between locations and solving puzzles you already solved. This aspect of the game is not fun nor interesting, and eventually it becomes very, very frustrating.
Now, if you're currently typing out a comment about how player friction is a deliberate design decision, actually not a flaw, please cease typing that comment. Okay, you're looking at someone who's made videos about Dark Souls, Rainworld, Outer Wilds, The Void, Starseed Pilgrim. Please, do not lecture me about frictiony game design as though I don't know what that is. Just don't embarrass yourself in that way. Like the RNG complaints, this is another place the discourse gets derailed by people who assume you're coming from a dumb, bad faith place when you're not. You just want to have a conversation that's beyond the level of this game has friction and that's bad, or this game has friction and that's good. It's just much more complicated than that. There's a delicate balance in these games between friction and fairness, and it's completely reasonable to argue that a game falls a little too far on this or that side. My problem with Blueprints isn't that it has friction. It's that it has a lot of unnecessary friction, which is constantly getting in the way of what makes puzzle games fun and rewarding. The puzzles.
I'm struck by the fact that both Outer Wilds and Blueprints are exploration-based mysteries with roguelike elements, where it feels like the exploration sometimes conflicts with the mystery solving. To be clear, Blueprints is much worse than Outer Wilds in this regard. Outer Wilds is a masterpiece, and even its frustrating elements come out of a singularity of vision that I at least have to respect. Blueprints, on the other hand, feels like 2 games taped together. There's the roguelike trophy hunting game that you can actually play completely separate to the mysteries. And then there's the grand mystery with clues scattered everywhere that you have to put together and solve. And they conflict. And as much as I would have loved to have seen a lot of the RNG elements removed for the mid to late game so I could effectively engage with the puzzles, that would have ruined the achievement hunting part of the game. So I kind of get the sense that Blueprints is trying to do two things at once, but in my opinion, it can't successfully do both.
I wouldn't be surprised if the really die-hard fans of this game are the people who love the roguelike challenge part, like reaching room 46 on day 1, or playing on dare mode, where you need to reach room 46 with a bunch of restrictions in place. Because the puzzles don't get in the way of the RNG-based challenges. But the RNG does get in the way of the puzzles, which means that if the puzzles are the main draw for you in this kind of game, you will just not have a great time, at least once you get deep enough into the mid-game. For me, someone who loves puzzles and can take or leave trophy hunting, it's unbearable having to roll the luck dice and run between locations and do other unchallenging and uninteresting things for hours in between the puzzling. The more I play this game past the end credits, the less I feel like I'm playing a puzzle game, and the more I feel like I'm playing a busywork simulator disguised as a puzzle game. But even so, I haven't looked up a walkthrough. Yet. I have a confession to make. I have this thing with puzzle games where the first time I look up a walkthrough marks an entirely new and irreversible stage of gameplay. This isn't the case with any other type of game, by the way. Like if I get stuck playing an action game, I can look up strategies and then continue as normal. But with puzzle games, the moment I look at a guide, it feels like something's been irretrievably ruined.
I think this is because in other types of games, the heart of the game lies elsewhere. Like even if you used a guide to figure out how to beat a particular boss in Hollow Knight, you still have to be good enough at the game to do the thing. That's the main challenge and point of pride. But with puzzle games, figuring things out is the challenge. It's the whole game. So looking up a solution to a puzzle in Humanity doesn't feel the same as checking a Dark Souls walkthrough to find that you turned right when you entered the Undead Parish Church instead of checking around the corner to the left to find a critical boss fight.
When I use a walkthrough in a puzzle game, it feels like I've taken the game and broken it to see what's inside, you know? And as soon as I've done that, it can't be put back together again. The whole experience feels impure and cheapened. And from that point on, I am never as engaged with that game again. Some amount of commitment is just gone forever. Joel from Electron Dance likens this to the destruction of myth, a surrender, a loss of faith in either yourself or the game that can't be repaired. Either you, the player, were not good enough for this test of wits, or you were fine and the puzzle was bullshit. And if that puzzle was bullshit, maybe the other puzzles are too. Either way, any victory accomplished this way feels hollow. Even if you beat 99% of the game using just your own smarty pants brain, it still feels like you lost.
It's important to me to not take this easy road out. It's important that I push myself to get as far as I possibly can before I take what feels like that fatal step. So, on day 9 of my playthrough of Blueprints, I do 5 runs, and none of them are enjoyable. Insofar as I make progress, it feels glacial and minuscule. A small upgrade, an adjustment to a room to make it more common to draw in future.
For the first time, I feel what it must be like to be a professional game reviewer, having to push yourself all the way through a long game with no guidance. How do you people do this on a daily basis? And yet, I'm doing it now, to myself, with no excuse as concrete as a paycheck. I just have a weird relationship with puzzle games.
And then it happens. I do something I've been trying to do for hours and dozens of runs now. Drafting the furnace and the freezer close enough together that the furnace melts the stuff in the freezer. Only to find that the cooler I was trying to get into is the one object in the room that doesn't melt. And I find out later, when reading up on it, that this exception was written down in a note in the lab that I had read, but in fine print that required a magnifying glass, which I didn't have on me in that run.
I'm so mad about this. It just feels cruel to have the player go through hours of effort just to go, suck it. You didn't read the fine print on that one note from 10 hours ago. Like, I know it's my own fault that I forgot to notice that fine print and then redraft that room and reread that note on a run where I had the magnifying glass. And presented here out of context, it might seem like an obvious oversight. But if you haven't played this game, I cannot explain to you the immense number of clues there are in this game. Again, 22 pages, and that was before I rage quit. And how near impossible it is to keep track of it all. It's not uncommon to be dealing with a puzzle and find out you'd glimpsed the clue to it a dozen hours ago and had forgotten about it by the time you actually needed it.
Joel of Electron Dance, in his excellent articles on blueprints, discusses the inevitable outcome of this. That the player ends up having to screenshot every little detail that might at some point become important. And eventually, like Joel, you may check your storage to find 900 screenshots that you then have to keep referencing as you play, which not only becomes incredibly cumbersome, but reduces your engagement with the game in front of you, because you'll start feeling like the game of blueprints lives more in your screenshots folder than in Mount Holly Estate. Puzzle game maniac that he is, Joel pushed through, but actually felt less like a puzzle solver the more this process went on, writing, "I felt like a man who had turned his thinking over to an LLM, incapable of solving puzzles because the hard drive had all the answers." My patience for the process ran out well before the 900 screenshot mark, and the freezer incident was the first big blow. This freezer room that requires a very difficult and time-consuming set of actions to melt the stuff in it, only after which the player may find that to access the important stuff in that room, they actually need to do something entirely different. Use the burning glass item. In this moment, this felt like malicious game design.
But it's not. It's not malicious. It's simply the result of an incredibly lengthy puzzle game that contains so many dozens of puzzles and hundreds of vague, free-floating clues that it's just so easy to lose track of that one clue you need to pull up for the puzzle you're working on, or to not even know whether you've come across the clue you need. Starting tomorrow, I've decided to compromise. I won't yet look up solutions online, but I will ask some people who are further on in the game than me to give me some light hints in response to some very specific questions. Not a spoiler, a nudge. I was supposed to... The first thing my friends ask me is if I went in room 46. I say, yeah, I told you I finished the game. I entered room 46. It triggered the end credits and the start of a new run. And they say, no, you need to go in the room. And I say, what do you mean? I need to do the whole sequence of events again that gets me into the room I already accessed and was kicked out of?
And indeed, that is what I needed to do. Because when I first entered room 46 and it triggered the end credits, I thought that was what going in that room always did. Triggers the end credits. And after the end credits, it restarts you outside at the beginning of the next day. So I assumed, well, there must not be anything you're supposed to find in room 46, or it wouldn't have shown me the credits and booted me out. But it turns out that the second time you go through that whole sequence of events to beat the game and get into room 46, you actually get into room 46. It could have just let you in the room the first time, rather than requiring you to somehow know the game does something different the second time you do this. It could have rolled credits and then started you from inside room 46. But instead, it resets your run after the credits, so you have to do it all again, for no reason.
Fine. I suck it up. I build all the way back to room 46. It takes me 3 attempts, but I do it, and I find a puzzle I don't have enough information to solve yet, meaning I'm going to have to do it all again later. This is it. This right here is the moment I snap. After all the jumping of arbitrary hurdles, the gargantuan effort that gave me one stupid key, the freezer incident, and now this, forcing the player out of a critical, difficult to reach room just to make them go back in the room. I'm done. My trust in this game to be fair and respectful to me as a player is gone.
What happens next is just the cherry on top. I draft the pool room, which makes the pump room appear in my drafting pool, and I manage to connect the pump room to a power generating room, a series of ridiculously RNG dependent events. This lets me drain the reservoir, but when I leg it down to the reservoir, I notice that there's a passage about halfway up that's been revealed, but no water level indicator to show exactly how far up I have to set the water level to access it. I surmise that I have to just guess this. Like I have to run all the way from the reservoir back to the pump room in my house and adjust the water level to what I think it should be, and then run all the way back to check if it was right, and then probably run out of steps and have to start a new run and build it all again, and access this spot through trial and error is what I mean. And thank goodness I mentioned this to my friends, because they said, no, you don't have the piece of information that tells you how high the water needs to be. I have a big problem with this, because this puzzle could be solved by trial and error. There are only 14 notches on the reservoir water level indicator. It is guessable. And players might think, like I did, that this was the way to do it. This is a puzzle where it's actually not clear that you don't have all the information.
This is... what's the word? Bad. I swear, this is just bad puzzle design. If the player doesn't have all the information to solve a puzzle, that should be clear, so that they don't spend ages banging their head against a wall needlessly trying to solve it. I can see the alternate universe where I wasted hours doing this the hard way and then realized there's just another location that tells you the water level it has to be set at, which I did find later. That version of Kat is so traumatized by the experience, she can never look at a reservoir again. It's at this point that I realize I haven't actually solved a puzzle in hours and hours. I can't remember the last time I solved a puzzle, or even made what felt like satisfying progress. If I wasn't planning to make this video, I would have already quit a while ago. Today, while playing, I had a thought. If I wanted, for some reason, to kill someone's joy in playing a puzzle game, I would make a puzzle game and populate it with tons of clues that were really difficult to access. And then I'd make it so that every time the player just wanted to double check a clue or try something on a hunch, they'd first have to travel vast distances or spend up to an hour rolling dice until they rolled the right number. or spend ages checking through hundreds and hundreds of screenshots worth of clues that the game doesn't help you categorize or keep track of.
I know it's not just me who feels like this. Indie game developer Tom Francis has a fantastic YouTube video in which he talks about the importance of being able to chase hunches in an information game.
I need to be able to chase hunches. Like that's the key thing for information games to me is once if you're lucky enough, if you're good enough to have created a situation in my mind where I'm excited about some particular thread of evidence, for God's sake, let me chase it. Because if you don't, that enthusiasm just fizzles out, and then I'm just back to the thing of, okay, yeah, well, one day that might come up, and I'll see if it works.
He rightly points out here that Blueprints' insistence on putting all this busy work in the player's way undermines one of the greatest joys of games like this. The ability to have a light bulb moment and go, ooh, what if this? And then ride that thrill as you input the solution and see if you were correct.
I should be feeling joy and excitement at finding a new clue or having a new idea. But at this point in my playthrough, even when I find a clue or have an idea, there's only dread. The burdensome knowledge of how long everything in this game takes to do, including chasing hunches and checking solutions. The bread and butter of puzzle games. The delicious dopamine hits from the early to mid-game are a distant memory. Now I can feel my brain cells refusing to budge.
I find myself agreeing with Mark Brown and many others who would have liked a lot more control over the drafting pool in the late game, and an in-game note system to store documents and photos and stuff you already found, so you don't have to take 900 screenshots or waste time re-finding things. Even if you'd consider that too much tampering, there are tweaks that I think would straightforwardly save time with no loss in gameplay experience. Why can't I store books in the library that I've already checked out before so I can look at them anytime I want? Why does the secret clock tower door close after you when you leave, even if you haven't solved the puzzle inside yet? Can't I just jam the door to make it stay open? Couldn't the pump room have some preset shortcuts so I don't have to redo the whole tedious process of manually filling or draining a room? Why can't I go into room 46 the first time? Maybe there'll be future patches that implement this sort of stuff. While writing this script, a patch released to make all the safes you've opened stay open for future runs so you don't have to keep re-inputting the solutions every time. This is a good step, but in my opinion, doesn't go nearly far enough.
Not only this, but I find the game bleeding into my life again, but this time, not in a good way. My patience is gone. Suddenly, everything seems designed to waste my time. The credit card machine at the grocery store takes a couple of swipes to work. A website freezes on me and I have to reload it. The sink is blocked again and the water's taking ages to drain. I think I have to stop playing this game. My mum sends me an email that reads, "Will you ever again have the time to talk to your mother?" And there's the cost. I break the seal. I start Googling answers and I don't stop because I'm out of ideas, out of energy, out of goodwill towards this game. And this time I feel like it wasn't me looking up spoilers that killed my relationship with Blueprints. It was simply that the game lost my good faith. And once that happened, it was only a matter of time before I put it down. For the record, I got to 87 in-game days. And so ends my journey. Let's call it a day, shall we?
Insofar as I can bring all my scattered thoughts into some kind of conclusion, it's that Blueprints is the best and the worst of puzzle game design. It stands on the shoulders of what's come before, and yet it also carries the inheritance of some of the main problems of the genre. Like a lot of exploration-based puzzle games, Blueprints is at its best in the mid-game, in that sweet spot between confusion and mastery. The possibilities stretch out endlessly in front of you, and you're making discoveries regularly, gaining knowledge and speed in the most deeply satisfying way. There's no doubt that at times this game is brilliant and intoxicating to play. When people defend Blueprints, I think this is the part of the game they're defending. Like a lot of exploration-based puzzle games, Blueprints doesn't maintain the momentum. Eventually, your paths of inquiry will dwindle, and you'll be left spinning your wheels, expending ever greater amounts of time and energy for less and less gain. Because traversal isn't a simple matter, if you want to go back to a room and check something in it for just a few seconds, you might have to spend up to an hour grinding before you can do so. When people criticize Blueprints, I think this is the part of the game they're criticizing. I think Blueprints understands what makes a puzzle game great. How to give players those aha moments that make your brain light up like a Christmas tree. At the risk of repeating myself, I solved puzzles from this game in my dreams. The 44-letter puzzle, the puzzles from a new clue, they're brilliant. I love that there's a puzzle where you translate a language. That's really cool. I love these puzzles. I just wish they were in a different game.
These critiques are, of course, coming from one person who had an incomplete experience with the game and came to it with a specific combination of intentions and motivations. There are people who had different reasons for playing than me, who had the intended experience that I didn't have, who completed things in the right order first time where I didn't, drafted a room quickly where it took me 20 goes, enjoyed what I saw as wasted time, or perceived the increasingly convoluted puzzles of this game as tantalizing rather than tiring. Now, I'm not here to say my take on this game is better or more correct than yours. My experience is just that. And although it was a fraught experience, I'm glad I had it. I'm glad this game, this strange, wonderful, daring, infuriating game exists. Its design is at odds with itself sometimes, and it may not be going into the ranks of my all-time favourite puzzle games, but I'd always rather see a game take a big swing and not entirely hit than have to play another polished, creatively bankrupt title. The video game landscape is all the better for Blueprints being in it, and I can't wait for the next iteration of puzzle games inspired by it, some of which I happen to know are already in development. I can't wait to see how these games attempt to answer some of the questions Blueprints has left hanging. What makes a great puzzle? What do puzzle games owe their players? How do you embrace this much openness and choice without abandoning players to the cruel whims of chance? Design deep layers of mystery without regressing to bullshit puzzle design? Mitigate the effects of traversal and RNG so that the late game doesn't stagnate? How do we talk about games that have the potential to create such wildly different player experiences without invalidating each other's experiences? What lessons will games learn from Blueprints? What grand designs does the next generation of exploration-based puzzle games hold for us? Will I ever be able to just be normal about using a guide to help me through a puzzle game? At least for now, that remains a mystery.
If you're still here, well done, and thank you for listening to my long rambling thoughts. Please also share yours in the comments below. Tell me what you thought about Blueprints, or Fezz's monolith, or the video, or anything else that you'd like to share your thoughts about. I'd really appreciate it, and I'd appreciate you giving this video a like and a subscribe, and do consider signing up to my Patreon. where you can get all kinds of perks for as little as $1 a month. Thanks to everyone who supports the channel in ways large and small. It really means a lot. See you next time.